What is up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work to Game, and we just got done with the live letter for patch 5.2 of Final Fantasy Echoes of a Fallen Star. They showed off the new trailer twice. It looks incredible. Links should already be live on YouTube in whatever the language that they support for you is. So definitely go check that out. Very excited about it. It, of course, was visually stunning. The cinematics team, as always, delivered on point. This is our February patch, so we have a lot to do here. We have a lot to go over, so I am going to be just kind of flying through this. Remember, this is still preliminary, so when it comes to the patch notes, those will be there for the patch on February 18th. So if you just wanted the day, it is February 18th, Echoes of a Fallen Star. It will not get a 24-hour maintenance window. There is going to be a lot of stories. So to just preface this whole thing, they did say the amount of story is going to be so much that if you want to really engage with the story thoroughly, don't plan on getting to anything else that day. Plan on just knocking out story. So I'll try to include links down below to all of the trailers that I can find. If I miss any, feel free to post them in the comments below, and we'll, of course, like that up to the top. We'll do our best to add that. So the trailer is its own mess, and I look forward to somebody like Ethis going into that. They spent the first hour of this 4-hour live letter talking about concerns inside the community around some of the recent decisions on things like mod support, add-ons. We've had some drama around all of that, and there has been continued drama depending on what part of the community you live in and operate your life in. You may have heard of some of this, and so they wanted to talk about third-party tools and modding. So their issue with modding is that there are mods out there like shaders that allow you to visually change the experience that you have with Final Fantasy XIV and your relationship to the assets inside this game. People have been using these to take lewd screenshots and feel that because maybe they didn't get banned and because it hasn't been explicitly stated enough, or because something was written vaguely on the forum by a response, that they were not taking a stance. So he said, to anybody that says we're not taking a stance on this, and he paused, short sentence here, it is not allowed. So he was very clear there. Depending on what content you publish, it goes beyond just getting a penalty from Square Enix. He wanted to make you aware that in some countries, the screenshots can actually even be against the law. So I don't know what people are posting, but I'm sure it can get pretty graphic. He said it's also against the terms of service to use third-party tools, so please refrain from using them. People, of course, take this to go one step further and say things like, well, what about Discord? That's a voice chat, and that's technically a third party. And they're like, well, really, it's things that it's hard to draw a line between tools we accept and ones that break the game. DPS meters just add the numbers that are shown in my battle logs. So isn't that just the same as a calculator? And he said, well, as an engineer, he knows you could write an Excel macro to read the log file after a fight is done. But since he is taking a stance on this, we can't know what's installed on your PC. We don't want to run a scan on your PC. It's against the law in many places to run a scan on your PC, but third-party tools are against the TOS. Gray is still gray, but we're asking you not to use third-party tools. We will not be adding an official parser. It will turn everything toxic. We will not implement one ever. That is parser. So in my mind, that's very different than like what appears at the end of a PvP match where they show everybody's damage in total. And that's very different than going back and creating maybe a personal scoreboard for how you did in a dungeon. A parser in my mind is that live DPS meter that you see on the bottom of every WoW stream and on the bottom of many 14 streams. So from spending an hour on this, what that tells me, and the gravity of it, is that if you stream 14, if you create content around 14, if you take screenshots and share them around 14, be careful including parsers in that. They have made this abundantly clear over and over and over. And so at some point, if it's not getting across, they're going to make an example of somebody. And if it hits somebody who makes a living at this, or makes a side income at this, or it's a deep passion of theirs, or whatever 14 means to you, that could really hurt. So just use whatever caution makes sense to you. It's been stated. Very, 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 very clear. If you call out somebody for low DPS, the problem is not the third-party tool. The problem is the harassment. So we can't do anything if you have a little window showing, if you have a little window showing ACT or whatever, just knock it off. There are additional plugins for ACT that influence gameplay a lot. This is breaking game balance, and it will be the target of more severe penalties. This is starting to refer to things that typically it's called DBM. That comes from Deadly Boss Mobs in WoW. That's where that term comes from. And what that is you can start to build in scripts that say, when a certain event happens, trigger a text thing on screen that shows me X, or put a marker on the ground, or put a marker on a player, or whatever. So it's like, I know to run away from a player, I know to run towards a player, I know to run away from a side of a fight, or I know that he's about to cleave, I need to not stand in front. People often say that breaks the world first race. Keep in mind, these tools work because somebody told them what to do. So if they're working during a world first race, that's because somebody in that world first race is teaching them as they go, which means that information can be just as faulty as it can correct. So just to be really clear on that, I'm trying to spend a huge chunk here at the beginning of this video going over what they spent a huge chunk of time on going on, and they're saying that that's a problem. For example, they said during the world first race for Alex Ultimate, there was a tool that was allowing people to instantly replace waymarkers during a fight. That was the first time I learned a tool like that existed. Players can replace waymarks on their own, but having a tool do them instantly is wrong. Please don't do this. We've taken actions to keep it from happening again, and then we are going to be adding a tool to allow you to mimic that, but it will not be usable during combat. So he did show off that tool. It allows you to place down up to 8 markers. You can save up to 5 presets. One part of the translation kind of made it sound like you get 5 presets per fight, which would allow you to go back and have old fights if you want to run them unsynced. One allowed just 5 total, which would allow you to have one for at least all of the current tier stuff, because when you think about like things like Eden, 5 is really plenty when you're in that progression learning, and then you would just have to remember it when running old stuff, or if it comes up in roulette. But usually we outgear it at that point. Usually the fights are not done nearly as seriously in a roulette as they were back when they were on the edge of what people were geared for. So they have taken actions for that, and there have been clips going around of a tool where it shows an untargeted AoE will hit. If we catch you doing this, this is a heavy penalty. Now, to show you the marker, they did show this all off. It was very neat to see it working. It was very neat to see the 5 presets. I hope this runs exactly with 5.2 and this isn't delayed, because in this patch notes they spoke about 5.2, 5.21, 5.25. And then he noted that he did have things on his computer from 5.3 and later, so he was trying to be careful not to spoil. There were a couple spoilers. The people in the translation team did not put them in the Discord, because they've gotten very good about not sharing leaks. So we will not be sharing leaks. But to those of you that watched it live with us over on Work to Play, thank you for hitting subscribe over there. And hopefully you got to see a couple of the cool things throughout this live letter that they showed off that everybody else will have to wait until patch day and over the next couple weeks, just twiddle their fingers and wonder what it could be. So you might have experienced in the past that somebody placed a marker slightly incorrectly and it screwed you on a mechanic. This should help avoid that. When you see a preset out there, you will actually be able to import that preset. So if a raid lead says, here's the preset, and you like that, you can actually save that to yours. And then in your next raid with Pugs, you can say, I have the preset from this other guy. It worked great for us. So I really like this. It'd be neat if these were shareable in some other way besides going in there. But worst case, you queue into the dungeon, I open it up, I share it with you, and then you share on. But it would be neat if there was a way to kind of somehow import that. But if you give a mouse a cookie, of course, they gave us something new. It hasn't even come out yet, and I'm already asking for more. They tried to make sure that the colors were easy to distinguish, and you will still be able to place markers in PvP. You will not be able to use the preset when in combat. That's tied to it being flagged as out of combat. Now in 5.2, we will of course get main scenario. I mentioned how long those were. We will get our new beast tribe, the Qatari. This is going to be focused on gathering, not crafting and gathering like the Namatu, gathering. So once you finish the exceedingly long cutscenes and you decide to get to the beast tribe or in whatever order, just know that this is where we're going to start getting that. We will have Chronicles of New Era quests, the Sorrow of Werlet. I don't know how to pronounce that. And then a new quest series for upgradable equipment, which of course hints at our Relic gear. Upgradable equipment will start in 5.25. We already know that the next chapter will be in patch 5.35, and they will touch on that a little bit later on. And we will be getting one new dungeon. Remember, we were just getting one new dungeon per patch now. I think it'll be evident by how much is in this patch that we're not just only getting one dungeon. We're getting a lot of other things in addition to. Hopefully they keep that pace up. The new trial will be getting Cinder Drift, where we'll be fighting Ruby Weapon, and then Cinder Drift Extreme. And then there is another trial tied behind that 5.25 story. And then there's going to be one for that 5.35 as well. So that's going to be a field type event. So that made it sound kind of like we were going into an instance like Eureka, but they did say hold off on getting too set on that. The new dungeon will be in the latter half of the MSQ quest, so not just make sure that you have your eye level, but plan on that being in there. I will say, with them noting that the MSQ is particularly long, them noting that it's in the second half, does mean that our dungeon guide will probably be later in the day than usual. Usually we have those out in the morning, and I just don't know that we're going to get to it that fast for that. The trial with the 5.25 is a secret for now. I assume that'll become clear once we have a little more idea of what that story is trying to tell us. They said that it's going to be extremely difficult, but not called extreme. So you really are going to get 2 extreme difficulty fights during 5.2 as a whole. The new content, new raid content, Eden's Verse. How exciting. We're going to be getting Eden's Verse Savage as well. There will be job adjustments in patch 5.2 for both PvE and PvP. They go on that just a little bit later. The detailed numbers, of course, will not be out until patch notes. But if you want to see if your job's going to be affected, they do give us a kind of a clue who's going to be affected the most. Ishgard Restoration will be patch 5.21. They said that's going to be approximately 3 weeks. So from the 18th, you kind of push into early March. And then we're going to be getting Kupo of Fortune tied to that. They kind of hinted that was coming. We're going to get expert recipes. They'd mentioned that was coming. We're going to be getting that ranking system updating every 10 days. They referenced that was coming as well. So that's 3 weeks, guys. Not 2, 3 weeks. 3 is the number you're looking for. So the expert ones are supposed to make you think about each step. They might show these later on the broadcast. They said because these are difficult and you don't want to lose materials necessarily, they are going to have training recipes for just 300 gil, so you can practice to be sure you're really getting the hang of this before you start risking materials for these expert ones. The rankings will be calculated on the first 10 days after the release of patch 5.21. So that is not now. That is 3 weeks after the 18th. There will be massive fishing updates, so we'll go over that a bit later. Sky Steel Tools, these are your crafting relics tied to patch 5.25. Materia system changes. They kind of referenced this a little bit. We'll go over that a little bit later. And then ocean fishing we'll go over as part of the fishing updates. There are going to be a few crafting actions removed, so if you think it was already pruned, they're pruning a little bit further. For fishing, they are going to be changing the notification. Now there's like a little exclamation point above your head. So if the rod moving with the glowing thing on the end wasn't enough, if your controller vibrating, if you haven't ever fished with a controller, it makes it so much better, so much more relaxing. You don't have to look at the screen. They're making it just a little clearer. And actually at one point it showed 3 exclamation points and he caught a 2-star fish. So I'm wondering if that's tied to the rarity or if that's just luck or kind of what that was. But as he showed 2 fishing casts, we did see 2 different things. There will be a new tombstone. This time it's called Allegory. Kind of looks like allergy if you read it too fast. And we will be getting New Game Plus chapters tied to Alliance raids. So if Crystal Tower or anything like that's something you skipped over back in the day and tied to all the 5.0 stuff, you're like, man, I wish I knew more about that. That's now going to be possible on your main character. You won't have to respin up a new one for that. We will be increasing the rank for free companies to level 30. There will be increased guild chest, free company chest space tied to that. We will get new courses in Leap of Faith. He showed those off. So for anybody thinking jump puzzles need to be harder, we got you. Fellowships are now going to be viewable in the companion app. I know that was a long requested feature for the people that are using the companion app. I hope that that's a feature like New Game Plus that caters to people who are extremely passionate about it. because the companion app isn't something that I'm particularly excited about. And then umbrellas will be added. They showed off 2 of these. They cast shadow on you, they block the rain, but they are kind of like mounts. They get their own menu, and the way they move, it kind of limits your ability to do something like have combat with them and all that. So they're going to function more like a mount menu that just doesn't make you run faster or fly with them. But they looked absolutely stunning. They have raised the umbrella game above all games that I know of. The question was asked, does WoW have an umbrella? We looked it up. There is an offhand and stuff like that. Nothing compared to this. So of the 2 titans in the room, the best umbrella game goes to Final Fantasy XIV. So from there, we talk about, they showed some Cinder Drift. He showed actually a surprisingly large amount on the fight, and had to apologize to the devs after. He did not. Screenshots of that I don't think are looked upon, but it did show some really cool new mechanics where, like, when stuff shoots out, it's actually going to cause like a raised area. There's going to be quicksand. So it looked really cool is all I can say. It's hard to say exactly how hard things hit when he's on his god mode black mage that doesn't even need to stay in its ley lines and just takes it. So he said the fence looks safe, but that's always your hint that an extreme or savage version of a fight could be changing something about the fence if the normal mode does not. He said there's something in the second half of the battle, so please look forward to it. I assume, going back to the trailer, that's going to start to give us a hint on that. So if you don't want spoilers, I would avoid the trailer this time. It's very visually stunning, but it has a lot in it. And then I would avoid trying to go out and look up any of this. So he said he really wasn't supposed to show everything he showed us, but the new models for the bosses look incredible. So prepare to be wowed in just a few weeks' time. From there, we know that the Cinder Drift story is going to be tied to the backstory of Gaius and will continue in the upcoming patches, and that's all they said. So everything after that is protected, not to spoil you. So hopefully that's just enough to kind of entice you in. And not so much that it kind of spoils anything for you. Job adjustments. The biggest, he said it won't be that many. The biggest change is going to be the Red Mage buff. They have apparently been showing up a little low in these non-existent parsers. And we're going to buff that. Potency increases. And they buffed Summoner too much, so they think they may need to nerf the dot potencies just a bit. It looks like on Red Mage, Fletch is going to be buffed, and the drop-off for some of the spells will be removed as well. It was difficult to see Samurai's meditation stacks, so they're going to be moving that to display inside the job UI. And then in PvP, Home Gang for Warrior will be adjusted, Monk will be adjusted, Dancer is too strong and needs to be nerfed. And we want to take Summoner as the basis to balance PvP, but please wait for the patch notes for detailed numbers as usual. Now the Qatari has an adorable little mount, looks like a little like beakless chicken inside a sweater. Flew that around, has a funny little butt on it. He couldn't show it flying in the first part of the live letter because he doesn't have flying unlocked on his live letter character, but he assured us it would fly. It has little music notes come off it. Looks like it's worth getting. So if you don't have gatherers, it will be, it's in Raktika Forest. It will be tied to being 70 plus. So you need to start leveling your gatherers now, as opposed to most of the content that's been leveled. This expansion has required very little leveling for the crafters and gatherers. So get started on your gatherers, getting those to 70. I would say hold off on Fisher if you're trying to level all 3, because Fisher will have some low level content here added in just a bit. So from there, he didn't show off too much. He just said it's only 4 gatherers and that there will be a split story about the history of Raktika. And at that point, you'll have to choose which direction you go, and you will not be able to see the other path. The rewards and experience will all be the same. I know there was some controversy about some choices in the lore in Eureka, and so it'll be interesting to see how the community responds to this. It does make me kind of want to coordinate with somebody like Brian and see, okay, if there's 2 paths, how do we make sure that we take both paths? So it's neat because that forces that sharing of the experience. Instead of you and I saying, hey, we saw the same show last night, what did you think of it? It's, I want to hear your story, because I don't even have a basis from where you're coming from. So hopefully that lands really well. We'll just have to see. So from there, that was when he showed off the leap of faith and said it was a long way. It was a long fall, but that he thought it was a little difficult, more on live stream than when he didn't have a bunch of people watching. And he thinks there's a few traps on the course. And from there, that was part 1. So with part 1 out of the way, that's the majority of kind of the patch content. Part 2 is where we start to slow down and we start to actually talk back through this, but with a little more detail. So there was your summary of the summary. Now let's jump in and let's talk about the new raid tier, Edensverse. Gaia is going to appear in the next part of the Eden story, and he had to hide his UI. There's like a Ramuh combined with Ixion with a much smaller beard. As a tank, the beard is what I expect to see. It's the only part of Ramuh I can draw from memory. Like, I don't even know how many legs does Ramuh have. All I can picture is that beard. So if you're a veteran player and you think of Thunder, he said you're thinking of Ramuh, but if you started in Stormblood, you might think of Ixion. So they definitely kind of took inspiration from that. This will be a stage you can fall off of. He showed a pretty decent amount of this fight as well. Looks pretty lightning themed. So a lot of, do I grab the balls? Do I avoid the balls? Do I stand near the rod? Do I get away from the rod without spoiling anything there? He actually showed us a pretty large amount of that fight. It seems to be separated into panels and things like that. So I assume that it'll be pretty well telegraphed as always. And then from there, we'll just have to kind of see how hard it is to actually get the clear. It's hard to gauge whether or not you should be doing the mechanics the way he does them when he's on his God mode Black Mage, because he can just do whatever he wants. So like, it's not like he has like an opener and if he touches something, it doesn't kill him instantly. But it's neat to see new mechanics as always, especially now that we're getting less of that. Now on to fishing, ocean fishing. This is very, very, very exciting. So ocean fishing, you're going to be able to board a ship. You're going to go into one of 2 areas, either Costa del Sol or Dravernian Highlands. And once you're there, it's going to take you to a series of 3 stops at 7 minutes per stop. There will be unskippable cutscenes in between. And you're going to fish, and every fish is going to give you score. There's going to be a high score announced at the end for who does the best job. Better fish will give you more score than less fish. It seems like it'll also give a hint of benefit to variety to make sure that you're trying to catch it all. You can leave early, but it's going to be doing that. And it's going to go every 2 hours real time. It will let you board for a 15-minute window. As soon as it hits 24 people, it will go. And as soon as it goes, there will be another boat, which will start the next 24. The reason you want to wait the 15 minutes is that you want 24 people on your ship, if at all possible. Once somebody can actually catch... there's certain conditions, and if anybody on the ship meets it, everybody on the ship has a chance for what's called a big haul. So for anybody that's played World of Warcraft anytime in the last few years, Legion had phenomenal fishing raids. Fishing raids were very much a thing that came out of some content within Warlords of Draenor, and without jumping too far into that, I would say this feels a lot like a Final Fantasy version of that. So dialed up to the 9s, very impressive stuff, very cool. There will be a vendor on there, so you don't have to bring your own bait and repair. If you forget it, you can do it as low as level 1. So if you have not been to Limsa to start fishing, that is where this looks like you pick this up. And he showed a picture of being in Limsa to get on there. And yeah, there you go. So go fish. It's awesome. It's an absolute blast of a time. It's very chill and relaxing, and making a game out of this sounds incredibly fun. You can queue as a party. He said that they're hoping people will hold competitions within their free companies and things like that. So they're hoping for that social rivalry to kick in, having a score. We don't really know too much about rewards tied to it beyond fish. We don't know a whole lot. They showed the UI specifically for it with like a little scoreboard and what you'd caught and all the time left and how many points you're at. And they showed him fishing, and he said weather and time of day and stuff will influence what fish you catch. Bait will matter, and he said that when they tested this, the debuggers all turned around and said, like, are you guys all serious fishers? Because apparently everybody got super into it. And I think that's really exciting. Both Brian and I are very excited about this. Since it's every 2 hours, it seems like if you're going through your MSQ and you're not super tied to that, you might want to take a break and do this a few times in there, since it is so tied to time. And I assume those first couple days, you're going to have no trouble finding 24. And then depending on how engaging the content is, it will live based on that. So maybe it'll be like PvP where it's very hard to find a group mid-cycle. Maybe it'll be like some of these other things like maps where it's very easy to fill a group out throughout an entire patch cycle. So, like I said, you'll be able to leave whenever you want, but you wouldn't be able to leave that in real life, but we've made it possible in a game. So there's no penalty or anything like that, but you're going to want to stay on through the end. Seems like 7 minutes each, put some cutscenes in, put that. Expect it to take about a half hour of your life, and it's every 2 hours in real life, so you've got 12 times a day. It doesn't seem to be limited like Ishgard Restoration, so it seems like you can do that. It's just going to spin up an infinite number of ships. Hopefully you're on one of the first ships so that you're guaranteed 24 instead of that last ship that leaves on time that makes it to some fraction of that, since what are the odds that there's exactly a multiple of 24. There's going to be new fish prints and stuff for housing tied to this. Then they showed off the new raid gear for tanks, samurai. I'm sure these images are going around in much higher detail than what we caught. He just showed like printouts held up to the webcam. But they look stunning. They were very like white and shiny and very like the machinist looked like a musketeer and the tank looked incredible. And there's going to be some new crafted gear. That's all the gear from Edensverse that they showed off. So if you see those out there, but there was also gear that was being crafted that of course also looks stunning. He showed off a couple classes worth of that. And he said that goes to other roles all based around that design. And then it's time to talk about Ishgard Restoration. Now keep in mind, Ishgard Restoration. We saw the first part. They pruned the jobs down. In my mind, they gutted it. That was the exact word I used. The whole idea was that, yes, they made the barrier to entry very, very low so that we can get very much harder. This was supposed to be the beginning of it. We were supposed to build the scaffolding and kind of get the starting point of building a city. And now this is where the real restoration begins. Gatherers will play a more active role. We are going to... there won't be world visit. He said that seems to be a design mistake, so they're going to leave that turned off. If they ever need to turn it back on, they turn that off and on without shutting the servers off, so it seems nice that they could always do that. There will be more steps and more opportunities to take part in a fate. So one of those things is Diadem is coming back as gathering only content. Everything's peaceful, kind of. You're going to be able to fly around, go wherever you want. It's all gathering, and there are going to be materials in Diadem that are needed for the restoration. Mobs won't aggro you, but as you gather, you're going to fill up this ethereal, compressed limit break type thing that has like 5 charges to it, and that gauge will allow you to kill mobs, which can drop more materials. You kill them with like a little laser cannon rocket launcher thing. Looked incredible, looked ridiculous, and you fire that compressed aether. And if botany and mining, having a laser cannon rocket launcher doesn't excite you, maybe you don't like gathering. You will be cloud fishing there as well. You are going to have to be level 17 to enter. I assume that's because this is tied to the instance server. So since that's kind of been the minimum. But level 17 is not hard to hit. If you guys have your leaves at cap, which most people do, just burn those, get a class up real quick. It's super fast. The first levels are already easy on their own. If you pair that with leaves, you've got a couple weeks here. Very, very easy to get one of these above 17 if you want to be ready for this on day one. The animation is very, very cool, but they said don't forget to gather. And then they showed off a new camel mount, the Dommel. And he said that the neck was so long it was distracting to see what was in front. And he said, as always, don't ask why it can fly. So I don't think they're putting too many more just ground only mounts in the game, if ever. That'll be obtainable through Ishgard Restoration. So if you weren't sure if you wanted to get in Restoration, you've always wanted a Dommel mount. That's been your favorite giraffe camel type creature in the game. This might be a reason to go ahead and get involved. Now, there will be a new NPC for Kupo of Fortune. This is going to be lottery tickets, scratch-offs for participating in the restoration. The rewards are slightly random. Don't say loot box. You can scratch one panel, and panels on the left side seems to be the conservative thing. It won't give you the first or fifth reward, but the second and the fourth reward have higher chances. The right side can give you everything, but you're not going to have higher chances of the second or fourth. So do you take the conservative one, or do you, so like the random is going to kind of clue in, and you get to kind of scratch that off, and taking the safer bet or gambling is really, I don't know. Mechanics, I don't mind loot boxes as much as everybody else. So we will be getting a new emote, Eating Bread. Please go to Misc and ask her over and over how excited she is to finally have a bread emote. If you guys are not following Misc over on Twitch, go over there and watch her stream. MTQ Capture. She actually streams. She even does her MTQ University, where she does things with subscribers to kind of show them old content. So if you like her guides, which are probably way better than ours, I think they are, definitely go over there and see if you can have like a live guide with the actual person herself. So Eating Bread will be obtainable through this. And he did say, why do I have to gamble to eat bread? I will show it on stream, and he showed them eating bread, and he said it's going to be, it will be different between the races. So I don't know. I was really excited. They did show some new glamour. One of them looked like a little barista, and the new rewards as part of Ishgard Restoration will be in patch 5.21. As a reminder, 3 weeks after 5.2, 3 weeks after the 18th. Mark your calendars. Okay, 3 Tuesdays. Skysteel Tools. This is going to be your crafting relic. This is going to show you the story and the blueprints of the historically legendary tools. We found them, and we're going to be using them to help with the restoration of Ishgard. The stats will not be better than a fully melded crafter tool yet. So, when it first comes out, you can kind of work through it at your own pace. Enjoy that process. If you have a fully melded crafting tool, no rush. There will come a time when upgrading that tool makes it better. So just, get them at your own pace. They looked like they were straight out of like Elder Scrolls. Very exciting. There are many tools because how many crafters there are. It'll take some time to get all of them, and they showed off those designs. Absolutely stunning. So it's starting. It won't have an effect yet, but you will start feeling it as it upgrades in 5.25. So that seems kind of like when that's tied. It seems like the relic patch is 5.25. So that's when we're going to start that. It seems like 5.35 will be the first upgrade to the relic system when we get a feel for what does this all mean. Now, he did kind of laugh off and say, new quest series for upgradable equipment called Save the Queen, Blades of Gunhilder. If you're a veteran player, these same names might sound familiar, or if you've done the Gunbreaker job quests, they aren't, they didn't talk as much about kind of the backstory on this, but this is going to be the beginning of our relic. Playing through this, you will get the base weapon. They don't believe that it's hard to get all of them, so if you're somebody who has all your jobs leveled up, this was not designed to be like a big barrier to that. But you are going to have to join the resistance and free them from the ruler, Legatus Noah van Gabranth of the 9th Imperial Legion. It's a big long name. And it's left deliberately vague because they didn't want to give away too much information. So hopefully people really enjoy that. Matsuno-san is in charge of the story again from the Return to Evil East storyline. And 5.25 will be focused mostly on story. There will be a boss, as we mentioned earlier. And once you finish everything, you'll get a base weapon. And all you have to do for now is finish the scenario to get all your job weapons. And it'll pick up in patch 5.35. Connected in 5.35, there will be a field instance, Eureka, and both the story and upgrading weapons will be connected. This time it's a little more split, but please do not think this is another Eureka. It is, of course, influenced by it. They said leading up to this expansion, that they learned a lot from it. They don't want to repeat it, but they want to take the best parts of it. This time it will be different. It will still have separate levels in it. It will still be a separate instance. That's not happening until 5.35. And 5.25 will just get you the base weapon, just get you introduced. And the devs have the code name for the Baldesian Arsenal, and they call it BA2. Very creative. And where they tried to take in just the fun elements of BA, like using all the different actions. And then from there, they showed off the umbrellas in Gridania and Limsa. So I'm sure those screenshots are out there. I'm sure people caught better screenshots than me. It works just like a mount that isn't a mount. So he of course showed it in different weather. Absolutely stunning. So for everybody that's asked for this, I hope they're excited. And he said there's going to be more umbrellas. They spent so long getting this working that they joked about adding a job called Umbrella. Normally using something in combat wouldn't be a problem, but because this has so much detail and it casts shadow and it walks with you and it blocks rain and all that, they ended up kind of using mount data to kind of carry all that. So it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible. They had been working on umbrellas for 3 years. Now we're getting to kind of the nitty gritty of just like what they missed as they went over the big points here. Spirit bonding and retaining materia. They mentioned that they would be going this direction. You will no longer destroy gear when spirit bonding. So stop doing that today. Now when your spirit bond's complete, you're going to convert it and you're going to keep the item. Okay? You're just going to, every time the bar fills, so that is going to generate lots and lots and lots more materia in the market. I would expect the price of materia to fall in general as a result, unless they have some new way of, I mean, we're increasing supply and we're not changing demand. He did say demi materia will be adjusted. So for everybody still in this video, thank you for hanging out. He did say, I don't want this to be a big reason for panic, but if you're hoarding them, sell, 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 sell. So sell your extra demi materia. Don't generate more. He just said, like, if you're hoarding it, go ahead and start dumping. Now for Fanfest. We did get dates and locations. We knew that was going to be a big change for North America. There had been rumors we were leaving Vegas, and indeed we are. So the first Fanfest will be in North America, in San Diego, California, at the San Diego Convention Center. It will be twice the size of the venue in Vegas, and it will be on November 6th and 7th. Brian and I will be there, and we would love to see you guys. As a side note, we're about to roll out some new merch, and if you guys feel like getting new merch, supporting the channel, anything like that, or if a design just catches your fancy, when we roll those out, we'll let you know, and we would love to get a picture with everybody there, in our merch or otherwise. We'd love to meet you guys. Last time it kind of caught us off guard, and I wish we'd gotten more pictures with those of you that we got to visit with. We really didn't expect anybody to recognize us. So we'll try to be a little more prepared for the, those of you out there that actually recognize Brian and I, at least when we're standing next to each other. I think we look more recognizable as a pair. The second FanFest will be December 19th and 20th in Aichi Sky Expo in Nagoya, Japan. It's 50% bigger than the one last year. They said they couldn't have anything too close to Tokyo because tied to the Olympics, it's been very hard to book venues around there. So I'm sure I'm sure everything will be fine, but they just said that had a lot to do with why they chose where they did. And then in Europe, it will be in London, in the United Kingdom, and that will be in Excel London, February 20th and 21st. So first week of November, middle to late December, mid to late February. And that is where we're going to get all of our information about what the next expansion is called. If there's anything like new jobs, probably isn't going to be any more races, what the theme is, and just start getting that first bit of hype to get us ready for when we get our next expansion 6.0. Because believe it or not, guys, 5.25 marks kind of we're getting over that halfway point with Shadowbringers. So it's time to start considering where do we go from here? What happens after the first? What happens when this story starts to wrap up in 5.3 and we start to really prepare? By 5.5, we need to be preparing to go somewhere different, right? And it can't just be another shard. Maybe it can. So those tickets will be announced in the next few weeks. They will sell out. Doesn't matter that all the venues got bigger. They will sell out. Those venues are not as big as this game. So plan the ticket buying days accordingly. Have your money ready. Get online with a friend. If you're going to go with a friend, make sure you're on the phone with each other. So if one of you gets in and the other doesn't, they can buy tickets and you can PayPal, Venmo, all of that. Just plan accordingly and know that there are going to be people who wanted to go who do not get to go. In Vegas, there's so much to do in Vegas. It was really cool to go out and stay in the area and just visit with everybody. I don't know if San Diego will be like that. So in Vegas, I know it would have been cool to just go out and get a spot in the hotel and not be allowed into the con. But I don't know if San Diego's set up that way or if London feels that way or anything like that. Now, as we kind of wrap this one up, the 18th will also be when the patch notes are. That's when we'll find out more specifics on like job adjustments and things like that. At that point, we'll usually start to get a little better clue of things like what loot's dropping from what different. It's just the really nitty gritty actual numbers. PAX East is coming up just after that in late February. There will be a new t-shirt obtained through the battle challenge for where you have to fight Ruby Weapon. And then Yoshi P and the lead concept artist, Mogi-san, will be attending. There will be a fan gathering as well. I believe at PAX sometimes they do like an adult more fan gathering, 18 up or 21 up or whatever. So just kind of go out there and see if you can find any information on that if you're going to that. Brian or I will not be going to PAX East, so I don't know a whole lot about it. And then as a reminder, there will not be a 24-hour maintenance for 5.2. From there, they went on and they talked about a lot of things going on in Japan. So if you are a Japanese follower and you happen to like our live summaries in English, I can't help you much there because I don't read Japanese. So this wasn't translated as much. And then the hotel collaboration announcement, they had a room themed on Ilmeg and it was already fully booked there. And you get a cool little mug and everything like that. The Primals will be going on tour there in Japan, and then Yoshi P said he's going to have a lot of overseas trips this year. I assume that at some point we're going to get things around the Xbox announcement. I assume we're going to, I don't know if that's tied to E3 or PAX or what, but I assume that there's a lot going on at Square. There's a lot going on at Square. So both in and around 14, there's a lot of news. He said he's healthy. He said he's ready to travel that much. And then he reminded us on the Demi Materia, he's changing the price on those. He wasn't specific. So now from there, just some miscellaneous last minute updates, things they didn't get to, because I assume the patch notes will have many, many more of these. But just off the top of his head, he rattled off that G-Pose, you'll be able to save lighting presets that you liked. And then they didn't really get to go too much over high-end crafting of the action changes of Hand and Land. They have a great year for us, and that is the end of the live letter. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for hanging out with us over on Work to Play, to where we've moved all of our live stuff so that people that want to subscribe to one and not the other, or want to teach the algorithm, because every time you click on one of our videos or click on one of our live streams, that tells the algorithm what you're interested in. And so that allows you to kind of better have a feedback with YouTube where our different types of content separate a little bit differently. And so as we've started to have a lot of content here on Work to Game. We know there's people who come in and they just want to watch our videos and they don't want our live content. And we know there's people that want to hang out with us live. And every time a video publishes, it's not necessarily for them. So, but they always want to hang out with us live. So having that separate, I do want to say a big thanks to Aluna Minori and Miuna over on the unofficial Final Fantasy XIV Discord for translations. As always, they do such an excellent job of grabbing so many screenshots, grabbing so many translations, and it just makes it so much easier to kind of get all of this done. So on the final thing, they did kind of go over a little bit more of these job balance things, and I know I'm all over the place here. Red Mage is going to get purely buffs, damage on both single target and AoE. This just came in fresh off the translation, like right now. And Fletch, for example, Contra's 60's damage fall off is now removed. For Thunder and their arrows, potency is buffed, and the buff is done through enhanced jolt trait adjustments. Summoner, he apologized to Summoner becoming way too strong, therefore dots will have potency nerfed, numbers are not specified. Sam's meditation stacks will now be shown in the job HUD, and Warrior, there will be adjustments for the job, details unspecified. PvP will have significant changes. PvP potions will be buffed. Actions that don't get used much in PvP will see buffed. Tanks will be adjusted to go toe-to-toe with the Dark Knight's Blackest Night. Warriors' Holmgang will be adjusted. Melees will have huge adjustments for Feast and large-scale PvP content. Range will have adjustments so that they can compete with Melee. Dancer in PvP is too strong and therefore will have some minor nerfs. And matching issues will be completely fixed for Frontlines. As usual, these are summarized, and this is taken from several summary sites. Credibility is not guaranteed, so please refer to official patch notes for official info. So once again, huge thank you, guys. This was a 4-hour jam-packed live letter. I got it down to 45 minutes. That's about as fast as I could kind of let it know. I am most excited about the gathering updates and the story. Brian is, and then the fishing, and Brian is excited about the fishing and said he was excited about the story and the new fights and dungeons. And I think in general, there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to be excited about getting back into 14. I've been knocking out a lot of Temtem lately and starting to dip my toe back into WoW. And so it'll be nice to get 14 back in my life in a big way. Hopefully you guys are ready for this. We've got a couple weeks to finish up whatever game you're playing right now and get prepared to get back into playing 14 regularly, at least until you get through whatever part of this content excites you. The fact that we're getting a 5.21 3 weeks after, and then 5.25 is the Relic grind, means that this is going to be a pretty packed couple months for 14. So just prepare for this to take a larger portion of your life, especially if you want to get to more than 1 or 2 parts of this patch cycle. My name is Chris with Work to Game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below which part of this you are most excited about and which part you plan to do first, because it seems like a lot for day 1. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.